guys, and welcome back to the Cruel Corner. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty corner for all things Formula E. So, the Portland E-Prix, round number 1 of this doubleheader, of course, has come to a close. And wow, oh wow, oh wow, that was an exciting finish, wasn't it? Oh my goodness gracious me. Yeah. That was very much the championship protagonists feeling the heat, wasn't it? Some rising to the top and then tumbling down at the end. Others with maybe unjust time penalties. Others picking up damage early in the race and it's damage limitation from there and able to pick up a few points. But after all that chaos and carnage, let's not forget as well, Oliver Rowland out this weekend as well due to illness, so we wish him all the best, another championship protagonist. But if this race is anything to go by, if next race happens exactly the same, then Ollie Rowland returning for London, it could still be in with a chance. That's how mad this Portland round number 1 race was. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their overall race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points though. They're sometimes an offer some drivers to do something extra special during a race, and on the rare occasion I do award minus points to those drivers to do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Cruel Corner standings then going into this episode. It's on the screen now for you to take a look at. As always, a massive thanks goes out to Dan of Mushy Gaming for providing me with the standings that you see on your screen. And the big talking point, of course, going into this round and this race is that Oliver Rowland will not be scoring any points at all due to him being out for illness, as already mentioned at the start of the video. So it does lead to opportunities for the drivers further behind him to close that gap and maybe overtake in the Cruel Corner Championship. But if you've already seen the race, then yeah, you know that maybe that's not going to happen just yet. So without further ado then, let's kick things off with the race winner, shall we? Antonio Felix da Costa. Fantastic effort. Well done, Antonio. Brilliant, brilliant job. The last 4 races, he's won 3 of them. Unbelievable stuff. And do you want to know what's even more unbelievable? He's had none of them taken away from him as well. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Yeah, this is unbelievable for Antonio Felix da Costa. Yet another win. This latter half of the season, he has been the main breadwinner for the Porsche team, scoring the most points. Pascal Wehrlein's been in that little bit of a slump, hasn't he? And ultimately, this is what happened again this weekend. He was on for a podium anyway, despite everything that happened in the closing stages of the race. Mitch Evans' 5-second time penalty, of course, finished ahead of da Costa on the road, but obviously slipped back due to that 5-second time penalty. And with just a lap to go, Nick Cassidy binned it at the final corner and, yeah, tumbled his way from the lead all the way down to P19. So, yeah, that wasn't fun for him, was it? For Antonio Felix da Costa, though, once again, okay, qualifying, he got into the duels, fair play, good effort. Maybe he should have been expected to start a little higher up, but he was in P4, wasn't he? So I don't want to be overly critical with him for that, but the thing with Antonio is he's got himself into that position now where he's just like, yeah, I'm quite happy here, and he'll just stay P3, P4 all race, and that's where he was. He took the attack modes, he came out P3, P4. He might have occasionally slipped to 5th and 6th as the craziness went on, where they were going 5 wide down the straight and lunging up the inside of turn 1, but da Costa, he's found his feet with his Gen 3 era now, and he's just building up momentum, building up momentum. Had it not been for the disqualification in Misano, had it not been for a time penalty in the second Shanghai race, wasn't it, where he's lost a podium, he's obviously lost other things as well. I think I've worked out, and myself and Will, F1, in the comment section, we reckon he's lost about 50 points this season, just in unfair bullshit penalties. So, I mean, 25 of those, of course, was the win in Misano. So this is a little bit just desserts, I would say, this race. Of course, he was on for P3, picking up 15, so he's gained 25 instead of the 15, so he's gained 10 there, additionally, that he wasn't expecting to get as the checkered flag fell. But in the same breath, you think, well, okay then, 40 points then. Add 40 points to his tally. 40 points still puts him second in the standings as of right now, which is disgraceful, isn't it? So yeah, da Costa's had a difficult start to the season, admittedly, but he has been done over several times this season so far, and I hope it doesn't happen anymore. He's kept this win, so be thankful for that. But Antonio Felix da Costa, it's 11 points from me. It has to be a bonus 1 to him. What a stunning weekend so far by him. I hope it continues into the next race. It's not looking likely, obviously, he's going to be a championship contender. There's just two fewer races left now, but You know, they've lost the appeal now for the Mazzano win that we know they weren't going to get anyway. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, Antonio Felix da Costa, you know, Porsche himself will be ruining what could have been, because he could have been right up there in the title fight with Verline. But yeah, it didn't go his way this season, but he can still end the season on a high with more wins, more podiums, more points. And I think that's exactly what he's going to do. 11 points to Antonio Felix da Costa. Next up, we come to Robin Freitz in the Envision. Have I got that right? I think I have. Bloody hell. Bloody hell. How has he done that? How has he done that? He's scored next to no points all season, apart from when he first got the podium in like round 1, round 2. Yeah, I don't know how this has happened, but once again, qualified himself up there in that P3 area, stayed there the entirety of the race. Everyone else was falling over each other, tripping up over each other, going backwards, going forwards, dropping to 17th, coming back up to 5th. Robin Freitz followed the same sort of ethos as what da Costa did, which was, look, let's just stay around the podium places and let's leave it at that. And that's what he did. He was quite happily running around in that P4, P5 area, quite happy to run around and pick up the points when it was necessary. He started that second to last lap in P5, and then obviously elevated himself up. He got past Mortara, didn't he? And then we had the spin for Cassidy. Then we had the 5-second time penalty for Mitch Evans, and here he is crossing the line in the end and netting himself P2. Again, deserved. It's been a long overdue result this for Envision, for Freitz. It's unfortunate that Buemi couldn't be up there, but that was no fault of his own. But yeah, overall for Robin Freitz, it's got to be 10 points, hasn't it? A great qualifying effort, absolutely stunning. Cannot fault a thing for that. And then in the race itself, stayed out of trouble, stayed in an area it was comfortable in, getting the slipstream off a few cars ahead, but not tumble himself all the way down to the back of the field, so that when they obviously went, he didn't get caught out or anything like that. So that was quite a good thing for him to do. And I just think Robin Freitz, this car's always had this pace. They've just been luckless, and the drivers have been talentless at times, it must be said. And yeah, it's a perfect 10 for Robin Freitz. Again, hoping to end his season on a high. We're expecting him to maybe move teams, apparently. I don't know if that's true or not. Van Dorn meant to be replacing him, although they're maybe expecting him to replace Buemi. Not 100% sure on that yet, but we shall see. But for now, perfect 10 to Robin Freitz. At last. At last. And securing third place, we come to Jean-Eric Vergne in the DS Penske. This is how crazy how many penalties we had in the race, just for example, or after qualifying, I should say, penalties after qualifying. Jean-Eric Vergne wasn't able to get a clean lap in his group due to Sergio Sette Camara blocking his fast lap. Had to take evasive action, went onto the grass and spun. And he was P11 in his group. He was last in his group. So you think, well, that's either 21st or 22nd, don't you? Couple of penalties that we knew were coming for certain drivers, such as Buemi, that changed their gearbox and components and everything. So you think, right, P19, P20. No, he started that race P14. So there was a lot of penalties that happened in that session and after qualifying, and blocking incidents and things like that. That meant that Vergne actually qualified pretty much last and still started the race in P14 anyway. But that is not to take anything away from Jean-Eric Vergne. That is just merely pointing out how ridiculous the amount of penalties were going into the race. It pretty much meant that qualifying was irrelevant. But Jean-Eric Vergne, starting there in that P14 position, elevated himself up and just slowly chipped away, chipped away. In fact, he went backwards a little bit for starters, didn't he? You saw him in that P17, P18 area with his teammate Van Dorn, then climbed his way up, and it was on for what was going to be a solid top 5 finish. And you think, what a great recovery. Got even better though, didn't it? Mitch Evans' 5-second time penalty. And of course, Cassidy's late spin. Here he is, P3. Great effort, Jean-Eric. Carrying the DS Penske squad. A home podium for the DS Penske team as well. Bravo. Bravo, Jean-Eric Vergne. It's 11 points to you. It's not very cruel at the moment, isn't it? But we're getting there. We will get there, don't worry. But these drivers need praise, and it's been a long overdue season. Some of these drivers haven't had great results all season long. Jean-Eric Vergne, the bulk of the carrying of the points for the DS Penske squad. Crucial for them at a circuit where the Stellantis powertrain group were looking like it were going to be difficult. You know, neither of them really had a easy qualifying, neither DS Penske nor Maserati. And they were looking like they were even behind Mahindra. So the fact that he's here to get P3 is fantastic. Fantastic stuff. So yeah, it's 11 points to Jean-Eric Vergne from me. Bravo. Bravo. Long may it continue into the next race. Finishing in a stunning fourth position. We come to Eduardo Mortara in the Mahindra. Oh, what a great effort. What a great effort, Eduardo Mortara. Again, a great qualifying P6. Like, wow, that's a good effort, that. Good effort for that car, but as already mentioned, the Mahindra group looking a little bit better. There's apparently been a lot of changes behind the scenes at the Mahindra powertrain, where they're built and distributed, obviously the Mahindra squad as well. They're really trying to understand the software, trying to get it more efficient, and they've had a change of personnel behind the scenes as well that think they can push the team forward. And it seems like whatever changes have happened over the last few races have certainly worked, doesn't it? It really does, because it wasn't just Mortara up there. We had the likes of both App Coopers up there in the race as well, one getting a result, one not. We had his teammate De Vries up there at times as well. And crucially, those cars stayed up there, even though they all didn't score points. They're all in and around the points until the end. They didn't have that drop off because they had to save energy towards the end because they were so inefficient compared to the other drivers, which is what we've seen earlier on this season and in stages last season as well. And at a circuit where the energy consumption is so high around Portland, it was really great to see, wasn't it, that they were able to stay within like a percent and a half at the very worst case scenario with the other cars around them that have got much more efficient powertrain. So it shows that what they're doing is working. Mortara's doing a fantastic job this season after what was a tough season last season. Mahindra, he really has carried this team, and there's been so many results that have come so close to scoring points and it not quite happening, or crossing the line in points and getting disqualified. These last couple of races, it's all stringing together for the Mahindra squad. De Vries picking up points, Mortara picking up points. It's going well. Well done, Mortara. It's 10 points to you, and crucially as well, this puts Mahindra ahead of the ERT squad as well now. So that's a position gained in the constructors standings as well. So this was a big haul of points for them. 12 points for them, gets them ahead of ERT. It's still close down there at the back, but the way that the Portland race weekend's going at the moment, they're in for another tough race next time around tomorrow. But ultimately, they've got the legs. They can do something good again. 10 points to Eduardo Mortara. And in fifth place, as already mentioned, that Mahindra powertrain certainly playing its goods, and it's got advantages here this time around. It's Nico Muller in the Apt Cooper, the customer Mahindra squad, going to become Lola next year, of course, with the Yamaha powertrain. So that will be interesting to see how they get on. I bet they're maybe thinking, okay, maybe we switch to a new powertrain a bit soon, because it looks like Mahindra maybe are getting their stuff together. As already mentioned, you know, a circuit that's so high on the power and takes a lot of the percentage away from drivers. The efficiency has to be there. They were very efficient. So that is a very encouraging sign for the rest of the season and going into next season for Mahindra. But Apt Cooper won't be having those powertrains in it. They shall be Lola, and with the Yamaha engines in the back of them. Engines, you know what I mean. But yeah, overall this weekend for Nico Muller, a great effort once again into the duels. Stunning stuff. Proving that Mahindra has got one lap pace and race pace as well. It's going to be 10 points for me for Nico Muller as well. I can't really add anything that I've already said about Mortara's race. Both drivers pretty much mirrored the results. Despite being in different teams, it's crucial. Both, again, overtaking that ERT squad. So App Cooper have overtaken ERT as well now. It was a crucial 10-point haul this time around. So, yeah, it's all very close down at the back. And again, they've got more of the same to come tomorrow's race. They really need to knuckle down. So, yeah, well done, Nico Muller. 10 points to you. Then we come to the first of the title protagonists, sort of. He's out of it, isn't he? He's out of it. He might mathematically still be with a chance. I'm not really sure, to be honest. But it is Jake Dennis. Yeah, it's been a tough season for Jake Dennis, and this once again proves it. P6 can't benefit really from the disadvantages that the other drivers suffered. You know, Mitch Evans' 5-second time penalty. Okay, he benefits from that. Nick Cassidy's spin. Okay, he benefits from that. But he's still only here in P6, not on the podium, not picking up a win. That's kind of where you'd expect Jake Dennis to be. It's just not happened for him this season, has it? P6, best of the Andretti's, of course. But yeah, not been a great run, has it? Not been a great run. The race itself was clean and tidy, led a few laps, looked to be doing really well with his teammate in terms of managing the efficiency and racing round together. Leading up front, then was sort of like that P4, P5 area, but then they just slipped back. Dennis was able to clamber his way back up to a few points paying positions in P6 in the end. But ultimately, it's not enough, is it? It's just not enough. It's a solid 7 for me, for Jake Dennis. I think that's a fair score based on what he's done this season and what we've seen other people do in a lot lesser car further ahead as well. You know, singing the praises of Mahindra, singing the praise there of the Stellantis Group DS Penske car. Da Costa being on fine form once again. Robin Freight's up there, scoring his first points in about 18 years. And a first podium in God knows how long as well. So, yeah, you put all that and factor all that in and you think, Jake Dennis, yeah, okay, maybe the race car wasn't quite there, but it should have been a better weekend. 7-2 Jake Dennis. Next up we come to Sam Bird in the first of the mighty McLarens. It looked like it was going to be promising for one driver, wasn't it? But unfortunately it wasn't the one that we were all expecting. But, you know, Sam Bird here started down the field. Again, I think he was one that had a tough qualifying, wasn't he? 10th in his group, something like that. So you expect him to be around that P19, P20 area. I think he started something like 13th, 12th, because, again, all the penalties that happened after qualifying and the ones that we knew were going into qualifying were going to suffer penalties. So Sam Bird stayed in and around that area again, that P14, P15 area, just managing his car, just managing his efficiency, trying not to get involved in any silly scrapes or battles. Did that quite well. Climbed his way up through the field, looking like he was on course for a point or two. Mitch Evans' time penalty and Nick Cassidy's spin. I said DeCasti then. There you go. That's a new driver for you. Nick DeCasti. But yeah, Nick Cassidy's spin means that he elevates himself here to P7. A good handful of points, I suppose. A good recovery, gaining himself 12 places on his qualifying position. I think that would be, would it? I can't quite remember. Or did Bird have a penalty? Actually, thinking about all this now. Did Bird get? I think he might have done, actually. You know what I mean? I think he might have done. Again, it was just crazy, wasn't it? But nonetheless, good effort. Scored some points. I've given him 7.5. I think that was a good result, but again, not special or spectacular. Should really have been up there with his teammate Hughes in qualifying, but wasn't. But at least was able to pick up a few points for the McLaren group. That's decent. 7.5 to Sam Bird. Finishing in 8th place after crossing the line in P1, it's Mitch Evans. Oh, Mitch. Oh, Mitch. Very, very harsh. Very, very harsh 5-second time penalty, but I can kind of see why. I'm going to be devil's advocate here. You know I hate penalties and I hate unjust time penalties and unjust fines and things that aren't necessary within the sport that ruin a championship fight, which this has done to a certain extent. You know, had Nick Cassidy not spun, obviously, then it wouldn't have mattered, but Nick Cassidy did spin. Mitch Evans did cross the line in P1. That was 25 points going the way of Mitch Evans that wasn't going Nick Cassidy's way. It would have took the championship lead down to 7 points instead of the 23 or 24 point gap we still got for that P1 position. So it was a crucial result and it was a crucial penalty to make, but it did stick his nose up in a gap that was always going to close, did make contact with Jake Hughes and did give Jake Hughes the rear puncture. That cost Jake Hughes his race. He ended up the race one lap down as a result of what happened to him. And although you can say, yeah, you know, it's racing, it was close, it was tight packed, we've not seen penalties for this before. Sam Bird actually made a good point to Pascal Wehrlein in the cool down area after the race, saying, well, I gave you a puncture, Pascal, at Shanghai, I think it was. But yet I didn't get a penalty for that. So there was kind of referring to that. But again, each scenario is different despite it being the same result. And I think because the Formula E cars, they don't really rely on the front wing. They're just there for cosmetic reasons to make them look fast. I think had that been a Formula 1 car, or that front wing certainly played a lot more of an advantage for the downforce and the slipstream and the efficiency of the car, you wouldn't be sticking your nose where Mitch Evans stuck it. That's all I'm going to say. So I do disagree with it. I do disagree with it somewhat with the penalty. However, I can see where they're coming from and why they have penalised it. It maybe wasn't a clear and obvious move that Mitch Evans was ever going to make that move, was it? It was always a closing gap. Jake Hughes had just come out of attack mode. It's a tricky one. It is tricky, but I'm glad that they implemented the penalty in the race so that we knew when they crossed the line that, yeah, you've not won. It'd have been a more embarrassing way for the sport to be had he was allowed to celebrate the win, close the gap to within 7 points, then be like, oh no, by the way, you've got a 5-second time penalty now. So, yeah, it's a tough one. It is a tough one, but I'm 60-40, and I'm 60-40 in the FIA's favour on this and the steward's decision, I must be honest. So, yeah, let me know in the comment section what you think about the collision and do you think it was fair. For that reason, I'm going to award Mitch Evans 8 points. I am going to award him 8 points because he did do a great job. He's still got the pole position, let's not forget that as well. So he is picking up 7 points this race, or is it 8 points because he did get fastest lap as well? Can't quite remember, but he picked up pole position, of course, so that's 3. Picked up P8, which is 4 points. So he still made inroads, but it should have been more. It's 8 points to Mitch Evans. Then we come to the second of the DS Penske's. It is Stoffel Vandoorne, rumoured to be going to the Envision squad next season, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. His time at DS Penske just hasn't worked out, has it? It must be said. We've had 1 or 2 good races, but that's been about it from him, unfortunately. He doesn't string a season together well enough. It's always John-Eric Vergne taking the glory 9 times out of 10. And if Vandoorne is able to get a pole position, he can't convert it into a podium in the race. It's just been a difficult couple of years for him at the DS Penske squad. Last season, you could say, okay, learning year, you know, they'd come from the former Dragon squad, obviously, DS Dragon. They'd come to the DS Penske side of things, and, you know, they've got the DS sponsorship on board. They've got, you know, it's a total restructure of the team going into that Gen 3 era after a very difficult Gen 2 era, final Gen 2 era. So you could look at that and go, yeah, last year, development year, maybe, you know, Vandoorne just didn't adapt to the setups and the softwares that were put on the car, which is fair enough. This year, no excuses. I have been generous to Vandoorne and awarded him 6.5 because, as we already mentioned, the Stellantis powertrain this weekend looked to be a difficult one to drive, looked to be difficult over a single lap, so he did pick up a couple of points. So I've been a little bit generous on that side. Maybe generous by up to a point there, I would say, but at least he got something out of what looked to be at the start of the weekend, like if they scraped a point, they were going to be lucky. So I will award him a little bit of generosity there, but again, compared to his teammate that I gave 11 to, he certainly deserves a lot less than that. 6.5 to Stoffel Vandoorne. Rounding out the final points paying position, we come to Pascal Wehrlein in the second Porsche, picking up 1 point. It could be a crucial point come the end of the season, but when you see what happened to Nick Cassidy and Mitch Evans, that was a big advantage lost there. He could have been the one crossing the line in P1. He could have been securing a podium. But it wasn't to be, was it? Unfortunately for him, and we found out after the race, we already knew he'd picked up damage from an early interview after the race, saying, look, I got damage, it ruined my braking efficiency, so I wasn't able to regen as much as I would have liked to and as much as I needed to. So I was down on power compared to the cars around me, so I wasn't able to go forwards. I just had to maintain where I was. Then as other cars came around with it, were obviously had more power, I just had to let him go. So that was a difficult one for him. Looking like he was on for P8, but tumbled down in those last couple of laps despite the fact that we had the issues ahead. Obviously, he was that far behind, he didn't even benefit from the 5-second time penalty that Mitch Evans got. Finishing P10 though, as mentioned, he sustained damage, and the damage that he sustained was actually from the front wing of Mitch Evans, which is ironic, isn't it? Yeah, the contact obviously happened between himself and Jake Hughes, Mitch Evans and Jake Hughes, broke his front wing off, and then it was either that lap that the contact happened or the lap after he picked up the front wing end plate that had come off of Mitch Evans' car. It damaged the floor of Pascal Wehrlein's Porsche and also got wedged underneath the car as well, so it made contact, put holes everywhere that it shouldn't have put holes in, jangled itself round in the insides, and then wedged itself, so it was actually stuck down at the bottom of the floor. So that wasn't a pretty sight, and of course that will affect. I know we mentioned the front wing doesn't play much of a part in Formula E, but when you've got something as draggy as that and you've got holes in your floor, that does play a part. Obviously, it played a part in his efficiency and played a part, of course, in his overall pace as well. So for Pascal Wehrlein, could have been a massive points haul for him, closing the gap on Nick Cassidy, but it wasn't to be. However, it wasn't all his own fault. So I've gone for 6. 6 points to Pascal Wehrlein for that. Shame that he couldn't get himself further up the field. But this 1 point, it could be a crucial one come the end of the season, and not just for him, but also for Porsche's chances in the title race as well, because the constructor standings now with Nick Cassidy and Mitch Evans virtually picking up nothing after looking like they were on for a 1-2. I know it was always theoretical with Mitch Evans' time penalty, but, you know, they were 1-2 in that race, and then they ended up P8 and P nowhere. At least, you know, Porsche got a P1 and a P10 it closes the gap substantially. Let's wait and see what happens there. But for now, it's just 6 points to Pascal Wehrlein. Finishing just outside the points paying positions, we do come to Lucas Di Grassi. What a shame for Lucas to be P11. I'm sure he's pretty much the Nico Hülkenberg of Formula E now, isn't he? He had a very tough start to this season. Let's admit, I was throwing lotteries at him. I wasn't best pleased with him at all with his attitude and approach to racing. You could see the frustration that he was racing around in P17 as opposed to fighting for the points. This race was a lot more encouraging, but he just fell short, didn't he? Which is a shame. P11 once again. He's had quite a few P11 and P12 finishes this season now, especially in the second half of the season. It's a shame that he's down here, but I don't think he had a bad race overall. Was it as good as Nico Muller's? Of course not. It wasn't in the end. But the race itself, he was matching Muller all the way up until that last closing stages where the efficiency wasn't quite as good on Di Grassi's as it was on Muller's. Maybe spent a bit more energy at the start. But yeah, it wasn't worth criticising, was it? It was a good race overall. It's going to be interesting to see how this race plays out. Once again, mentioning the Mahindra powertrains there. These 4 cars here, you've got the 2 Mahindras, the 2 App Cupras. They've got a big opportunity to score more points here in the second race in Portland. And I really, really do hope they do it. It will be lovely to see. It'd be great for the team's morale going into the final stages of the season. And yeah, it'd just be nice to see him do well. Let's try and get all 4 cars maybe. All 4 Mahindra powertrains inside the top 10. Probably the first time that's happened in years, to be honest. But yeah, we'll wait and see. But yeah, for now, I've got to score Lucas Di Grassi 6. 6 from me for Lucas Di Grassi. Certainly not as good as his teammate Nico Muller, but still had a respectable run. And in 12th place, we come to Nick De Vries in the second of the Mahindras, of course. So yeah, again, pretty much mirroring exactly what I said about Lucas Di Grassi. Had a respectable run, had a good run, but wasn't as good as his teammate on this occasion, unfortunately. You know, his teammate was able to pick up a good haul of points there with a P4 finish. Nick De Vries ran around inside the points paying positions until the closing stages, but again, just fell a little bit further back when it should have really been a case of going forward. Sad to see him down here in P12, but again, more opportunities tomorrow, so let's wait and see. 6 again for Nick De Vries, getting the exact same score as Lucas Di Grassi. I feel that both of those drivers in the second of the Mahindra powertrain units, be it in Mahindra or Apt, deserve 4 points less than their counterpart of teammates that scored good points. 6 to Nick De Vries. Finishing in and unlucky for some P13, we come to Norman Nato in the second of the Andrettis. After what was a great qualifying, he had a 10-place grid drop because he'd accrued penalties over the season. He'd accrued reprimands over the season. I think he'd achieved 3 reprimands, or was it 3 and then you get a final warning, he'd received a 4th. That's it, 10 places. So qualified himself in P2, which was a great effort, knowing he was going to slip back, of course, 10 places from there. Couldn't really do any better than that, could he? Started the race itself in P11 due to other penalties around him. I think it was Sete Camry benefited from, wasn't it? We'll come to him in a moment. But the race itself for him, he was up there with Jake Dennis in the early stages of the race, up until the mid-phase. Then it was obviously an Andretti strategy to fall down the order somewhat after leading. Didn't quite understand that, or maybe they just got it wrong. But they fell down outside the points again after they were inside the top 4 for the early part of the race. And then it just all sort of didn't really... Then Norman Nato just faded into obscurity and I didn't see anything of him again inside the points, unfortunately. Jake Dennis able to come through the field and carve his way through and get a couple of points. Norman Nato didn't even manage that. So I've gone for a middle of the road 5 for Norman. I think maybe had he been able to stay in the position he qualified, the race could have played out better, could have put him on a different strategy. I don't think it was all his fault because both Andrettis fell down together down the order after making the way up the order together. Very unusual. Not sure what they were playing at. But yeah, I don't think it was all his fault. But again, it was one of those things. Middle of the road 5 to Norman Nato. Then we come to Sergio Sete Camra in the first of the ERTs, the ERTs. Yeah, what a tough one. What a tough one for Sergio Sete Camra this. He did really, really well in qualifying, but unfortunately he did impede and did cause John Eric Vergne to go off the track and spin. Did he deserve a penalty for that? Yes, he did. But did he? Did he deserve to have his fastest lap time deleted in qualifying as a result of that impeding position, and then on the second best lap time he'd done in qualifying, then get a 3-place grid drop on that? I think that's very, very harsh, but I've never seen that before. I've never seen that. If you impede, you impede, and you get 3 places, 5 places, whatever the stewards deem fit is the appropriate penalty to give. But I have never seen it before where they've impeded a driver so they delete your best lap time and then give you a penalty on top of that. Very unusual. Very unusual. You either delete a lap time or you give a penalty. You don't do both. I agree it was a severe and it was a clumsy mistake by Sete Camara. That turn 10-11 complex, a fast sweeping. You know, it was very, very fast. It was very, very last minute. It was on the racing line going very slow and it was very late. Jean-Eric Vergne came around that 10-11 and he was just coming through 11. He had to make a decision. Do I go left? Do I go right? Because this car's not getting out my way. Sete Camara went right. Thankfully, Vergne went left and he went down the escape road and off the track. Ruined Vergne's qualifying, and I don't discredit him for that. He did. He absolutely ruined Vergne's qualifying. But did Sete Camara deserve his best lap time deleted and then a 3-place grid drop? I think that's very, very harsh. Lining himself up on the back row of the grid then as a result of that, and here he is finishing P14 in a car that was 3.5% down on all the others around him. No matter where he was in that race, he was massively down on percentage. The ERT powertrain, not very efficient as we already know this season, but at this sort of race where it's very, very efficiency reliant, it really showed. Sete Camara, it's going to be 5.5 from me. He's not getting a lottery for that. It was a clumsy mistake in qualifying, but he suffered his penalty. But he was still able to come from 21st up to P14 in a car that was up to 3.5% down on power compared to all the cars around him. That has to be respected. It does have to be respected for that. Were points possible? Not with that inefficiency. And tomorrow's race is even faster. I think we are going to see the ERTs sadly propping up the back of the field without the help and assistance of safety cars, etc. So we'll wait and see, but for now, 5.5 to Sete Camara. Next up, we come to the first of the Nissans in Sacha Fenestraz. And there we have it, Lotterer of the Week to Sacha Fenestraz, unfortunately. The number 1 driver now within that Nissan squad, and sadly for him, he was not able to deliver the goods, was he? His inexperienced rookie teammate, Kyle Collette, outqualified him. Outqualified him, hands down outqualified him. Unfortunately, neither of them made it into the duels or did anything special or spectacular, but Kyle Collette outqualified him. So that wasn't a good start, was it? In the race itself, he got himself into the fringes of the bottom half of the points, and admittedly, I'm not 100% sure if they got this right or not, but they said that the Nissan that went down the escape road at turn 1 and lost a load of places was Kyle Collette. They said that in commentary live in the race, but then immediately after they said that, Fenestraz dropped a load of places from like P12 down to P20. I didn't see anyone else go off. I didn't see any yellow flags. So I'm putting 2 and 2 together there and saying that they got that driver wrong because they both got very similar helmets. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm going to take it at face value that they maybe got that wrong, the commentators. There was a lot going on that race. I don't blame them at all. But yeah, it was just weird how there was a Nissan down the escape road. They said it was Kyle Collette because he was losing places, but then Fenestraz went from 12th to 20th, and I thought, oh, transponder issue. He never got back up there. So an interesting one there, but nonetheless, not a good result here, is it? You know, with Sinoli Roland on the podium, were we expecting Fenestraz on the podium? Not at all, not at all, but he should have been inside the points. And finishing down here behind a very inefficient ERT car, as already mentioned, finishing behind all the Mahindra powertrains, finishing behind some Stellantis cars that were looking like they were in for a difficult weekend. It's tough. It's tough, and it does have to be a lottery for Fenestraz because he's that lead driver this weekend, and so far I've not seen any responsibility from him or any stepping up to that level of like, yeah, I can be a team player, I can be a team leader, let's go get this, guys, let's go get some points. Unfortunately, not seeing that yet. Maybe tomorrow's going to be a different race. But for now, it is Lotterer of the Week to Sacha Fenestraz. Then we come to Jahan Daruvala in the first of the Maseratis. And what a shame for the Maserati squad this weekend. You know, the Stellantis powertrain, as already mentioned, was very inefficient. The Maserati seem to be suffering more than the DS Penske's, which is weird. Obviously, some software data that the teams have altered has made the difference there. The Maserati's just got roughed up this race, unfortunately, didn't they? We saw a late retirement for Maxi Gunter due to contact unseen with Pascal Wehrlein. Jahan Daravella, I believe, had contact with a Nissan and spun round to the back because that's when Kaya Colette lost a couple of places. So I'm putting 2 and 2 together there. Maybe. I don't know. We didn't see it. But nonetheless, Jahan Daravella pointing the wrong way. Unfortunate. Wasn't going to be points racy anyway, unfortunately for him. Did look off the pace compared to his teammate once again. But it wasn't the worst race I've seen from him. It's 4 points. 4 points from Jahan Daravella for me. Yeah, very unfortunate, I think, overall this weekend by Maserati. Not got the efficiency, not got the engine, the powertrain working quite as well as they'd like to have hoped, and got roughed up in the race. Let's hope next race is better for him, but for now, it's just 4 points to Jahan Daravella. Then we come to Dan Tinctum in the second of the ERTs, the ERTs. Yeah, great qualifying by Dan, no doubt about that. P5 on the grid is first and highest qualifying position since London last year. So that's very encouraging, but the efficiency of that car. What can you do? What can you do? The efficiency of that car meant that he could do nothing. Stayed in and around the top 10 for really as long as he could. I think we got about 12, 15 laps into the race, and then he sort of tumbled outside the points then and never recovered from there. A very inefficient powertrain. He could do nothing about that. It's not really his fault that he's this far down the field. I think based on his qualifying, if he was able to match what the Mahindras did in have a good qualifying and stay up there, I've no doubt at all that, you know, Dan Tinctum would have been 6th or 7th that race. But the efficiency of that powertrain was such that he just had no choice. He tumbled down to the back of the field. It's a Miller 05 for Dan Tinctum. He's not had a great season this season, unfortunately. And then when you see a great qualifying, it goes to waste because of the inefficient powertrain that he's in, sadly. It's been a rough ride for Dan Tinctum. But this one was a more encouraging one. But again, can't score him very highly because the car just... I can't give him 10 for a P5. His teammate ultimately did finish ahead of him as well. So it's a Miller 05 for Dan. I hope the tomorrow's race gets better for him. But again, as already mentioned with Sese Camera, it's a lap shorter. It's going to be quicker. It's going to be more fast-paced. I can't see that happening. Then we come to Kaya Colette in the second of the Nissans, replacing and deputising, of course, for Ollie Rowland with his illness. Again, wishing Ollie Rowland all the best. I really do hope it's true and he will be back for London. His home Grand Prix, of course, his home E-Prix, I should say. It would be nice to see him. It's a month's time. He's got time to recover. He's unwell to be... What a shame. What a shame. Again, with everything going off this race, just on this race alone, none of the championship protagonists picking up any sort of massive amount of points. It could have been Ollie Rowland's day there to pick up the win, pick up the podium, like we've seen so many times this season already. He's not here. He'll be hoping for more of the same for his nearest title rivals, won't he, to pick up next to no points this coming race. I doubt it'll happen. I doubt Nick Cassidy will make that mistake again. I think Mitch Evans will be watching his nose a little bit more. I think, you know, Verline will be more cautious of debris on the racetrack. I think it will all maybe realistically go out of his way then and like not really be in the chance with the title going into the final rounds at London based on what happens in the next race. Kaya Colette, though, what could be said for him overall this weekend? So far, you know, thrown in at the deep end, very last minute, did a solid job in the practice sessions, did a solid job in qualifying, out-qualifying his teammate Fenestraz, and finishing down here as a result of contact, got roughed up, or he did the roughing up, not too sure on that, but Nissans and Maseratis seem to really like each other a little bit too much this race around. Kaya Colette's getting 5 points. 5 points on his standings for the tally in total. I think that's fair. Miller 05 for what he's done. Hope that the next race is better. His teammate, of course, got a lotterer, so he outscores his teammate by 5, which is very, very commendable. But a very tough race to judge by him overall. A circuit that's ridiculous with the efficiency and stuff. It's a lot to take on board for a rookie, and he did a good job. Miller 05 to Kaya Colette. Next up, we come to... You know what's coming. Nick Cassidy. And there we have it. Lotterer of the week to Nick Cassidy. What else could it be? Leading that race. And was just approaching the final corner to start the last lap. Yeah, and he threw it all away. Too hot into the turn 10 complex, turn 10, turn 11. Went wide in 10, clipped the curb on turn 11. That rotated the car, spat him onto the grass, and he spun And to down here in P19, when it could have been one hand on the trophy. One hand could have been on that trophy had he taken victory, because with that, of course, him winning would have not only been 25 points for him, but it would have only been an additional 2 points to Evans, not 4. It would have meant that Verline didn't score any points at all. Yeah, one hand would have been on the trophy. It would have been over 50 points ahead of the next rival with that, with 3 rounds left. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't think he's going to get an opportunity like that again the rest of this season, and I cannot believe he threw it away like that. Such a shame. We rarely see errors for him. And once again, it was a calculated drive up the field, wasn't it? Qualifying didn't go his way. Started in P10, ran around in P12 forever and a day. Didn't move up, didn't move down. Quite happy there. I'm managing my energy. And then he just went 11, 10, 9, 8. And then we went 8, wham, down the straight, turn 1. Everyone else is saving energy. No, I'm going in the lead, thank you very much. What a stunning effort. And then only lost out to Da Costa towards the end there, where he just wanted to manage his efficiency a little bit more, and then got himself back into the lead again. It was a great effort. Everything was going so well. Everything was going perfectly. One hand could have been on that trophy. And not just for him, but for Jaguar as well. Such a shame. Such a shame. A lottery of the week to Nick Cassidy. Then we come to the sort of list that had issues. I mean, Sebastian Buemi, it's middle of 5 to him. He wasn't a retirement. He did finish the race in P20. However, he'd got a 30-place grid drop, was it, for changing the gearbox and changing loads of components, basically, that they weren't allowed to change. So had to start from the back of the grid no matter where he qualified, and then had to do a drive-through in the race as well to serve the rest of the penalties he was unable to serve on the grid. So that meant unfortunately his race was over. Unless he got a safety car, he didn't get a safety car. He was pootling around for the rest of the race on his own, unfortunately. Seeing where Robin Freitz was, I have no doubt that maybe Buemi could have got there inside the top 6, top 7 area. Would he have been a podium finisher? I doubt it, but you just never know, do you? Hopefully this powertrain and power unit change and everything that they've done on that car, the gearbox change, obviously he doesn't have any penalties for tomorrow's race, so that means that he can go full steam ahead, new components, get him up the grid, get some good points tomorrow. But for now, just a Miller 05 to Sebastian Buemi. Next we come to Jake Hughes, of course, and again, as already mentioned with Mitch Evans, we know what happened with Jake Hughes, unfortunately. He had contact that was unseen in the race, but we saw the replays after the race had finished that netted Mitch Evans a 5-second time penalty. Jake Hughes came out of the attack mode and then was coming across to take the race in line. Mitch Evans had his nose there, clipped his right rear tyre. They got to turn 10. Obviously the tyre deflated and he skittled across the grass. Unfortunately, he wasn't aware that he actually had a puncture. He just thought he got onto the dirty side of the track and slid and went off. So he could have gone into the pits immediately there. But as it was, he went down the start-finish straight, then realised the car was crabbing, and then was like, ah, shit, I have actually got a puncture. But as it was, it didn't really matter for Jake's race. Even had he pitted on the same lap he got the puncture, there was no safety car intervention. There was nothing that enabled him to catch the back of the pack up anyway. So him doing that extra lap with a flat tyre and going a lap down made no difference to his race whatsoever in the end. Had he had the safety car, then yeah, it would have made a difference because he still would have been a lap down and on the back of the pack. It'd have made no difference. But yeah, as it was, there was no safety car, so it didn't make any difference at all. It was just a tough day at the office after a great qualifying by Jake. Miller 05 to him. I'm sort of treated as a retirement there. After he got that puncture, nothing he could do. 5 to Jake Hughes. And last but by no means least, sadly the only retirement in this race, of late retirement as well of course, it is Maxi Gunter. And as mentioned, getting roughed up these Maseratis this weekend unfortunately. Maxi Gunter looked like he was maybe going to pick up a point or two, but wasn't looking much better than that. He did run as high as 5th and 6th at one stage, but again I just think that was all the bunching and overtaking that happened up and down the field throughout the early stages of the race of course, where cars just didn't want to lead. I think realistically P8 was probably the best he was going to do. He was fighting around with Pascal Wehrlein at the end, and in an unseen incident those two drivers came to contact and unfortunately meant that Maxi Gunter had to drag a damaged car back to the pit lane to retire. Don't know whose fault it was. Pascal Wehrlein hasn't received any time penalty or any penalty at post-race. I've checked the results quite late on, and there's no penalty there for him, so I think he's safe with that P10. So maybe a racing incident, who knows. But for Maxi Gunter, the maximum I can score a retirement of 5, I'm going to give him 4. I think 4 points fair for Maxi Gunter. I don't think it would have been a special or spectacular race this weekend by him so far. Hopefully tomorrow's race can go better for him, and Maserati can get back to point scoring ways, because since Berlin it's just all gone wrong, hasn't it, for Maxi Gunter and for Maserati after such a strong start. 4 points to Maxi Gunter. So then, good boys and girls, that is the runners and riders of the Portland round number 13 E-Prix. Let me know down in the comments section below, did I score any drivers too high, any too low? The updated standings with the scores I've just awarded are on the screen now for you to take a look at. Of course, we have a brief change in leader with Nick Cassidy just in the lead. In fact, it's not Nick Cassidy, is it? It's Jean-Eric Vergne by a point. But as we know, Oliver Rowland going into this weekend was on 101, so he will still be the net leader at the moment. Kaya Collette, of course, taking his place down at the bottom of the standings just for this weekend only. Unfortunately, you know, that's the way it goes sometimes. I do wish Ollie Rowland all the best and hope to see him back once again in the London E-Prix doubleheader. As for everyone else, of course, there's so much to play for. We've still got drivers on final warnings. Those with 3 L's at the side of their names and the side of their scoring tally means that they have got 3 Lotterer of the Weeks, can achieve no more. They are all on final warnings. So take a look at those drivers, because one more bad race by them, they will be joining the back of the pack in the disqualified pile. No disqualified drivers so far this season. I was very, very rough with them last season. So, yeah, been more kind. We managed to get all the way to round 13 without disqualifications. Can we make it another round tomorrow without any disqualifications? Let's wait and see. Thanks a lot, as always, goes to Dan of Mushy Gaming, of course, formerly of Mushy Gaming, currently running under his own name, Dan Bartlett, silly me, for providing me with the scoreboard that you see on your screen. And, of course, who can forget Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for providing me with the Lotterer of the Week. It's been a welcome addition to the championship. Thank you so much for doing that for me, Dave. And long may it continue for the rest of the season and into next as well. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all again for the next one, round number 14, of course. I think it's going to be a hot and spicy race. That little less extra lap could play all the difference. The pack's going to go a little bit sooner. We could see fast and frantic action up front for the championship fight. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and as always, much love.